Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin.
Daniel.
And we don't have that other guy, Craig, with us this week, mainly because he did not watch the movie we're going to be talking about today. We talked about Venom last week after talking about Universal Monsters. And this week we're going to be talking about Dracula again. More specifically, Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, which is the one that stars Gary Oldman. It is directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It also has Keanu Reeves. So, with all that being said, I just have to say this is the first time I've actually seen this movie. I've always heard about it. Never really
Mhm.
interested me that much to see it until people always said that's good. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a watch. And I don't know about you, Daniel, but I did like this movie.
Really?
You didn't like it?
It's. I don't want to say it's not good. It's just bizarre. I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't like it.
Oh,
Because I guess maybe it's stylistic. I
it
was just
is
it's such a
very stylish, and I think it is like an epic. And one thing I did not expect in this movie was that it's essentially a giant stylized epic love story. It's barely a horror movie, if you can call it that. It's not even like a
yeah.
thriller-ish, really. And I think the funniest part of the movie is honestly Keanu Reeves because he is terrible in the movie. And the
Yeah.
one part that made me chuckle was his lack of emotion or expression when he's looking out the window and he just sees Dracula crawling on it. Like he thinks that regularly happens in Transylvania.
Well,
I'm
he did
sorry
make.
if I offended you, Count.
Yeah. Well, I did find his he's horrible in this movie.
Yes, and
I
even
think you.
Keanu acknowledged that. He said, I went on the IMDb trivia page, and it said Keanu Reeves said years after this movie came out, he wasn't happy with the performance, or he wasn't happy with his own performance because he was exhausted from making several films right before he signed on to play Jonathan Harker. So he said he tried to raise his energy for the role, but I quote, but I just didn't have anything left to give. So I can understand that he was very tired. This was the early 90s when he was hitting his stride. But I don't think, even if he wasn't tired, I don't think he would have done well because he's honestly not a good actor. I don't think he's ever been a good
Yeah,
actor.
and I think people have a better perception of him as an actor because of the success behind John Wick, which again, it's a very good action film. I will give Keanu Reeves credit,
It
in
plays to his
terms of
strengths.
exactly in terms of Matrix and John Wick, and I think what the other movie Speed. He's a good action based guy where he doesn't have to go as deep. But he does his own stunts. The John Wicks are renowned for
And
their action
everyone
scenes.
knows he's a great guy, so we're not dogging
Yeah,
on him for being a
yeah.
terrible person. He was just terrible in this movie.
But I think, yeah, and I mean, hats off. Keanu Reeves doesn't seem to have an ego, so he doesn't try to he doesn't try to keep going to these kinds of films. I think he just stuck to his strength and
Good
worked
for
out
him
for
for doing
him.
that.
Yeah, smart. But no, not even just his lack of emotion, but also his terrible accent.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry if I
He could
offended
not.
you, Count.
Yeah, his the English accent was highly inconsistent. When it even was there, but it's just so drastically different when Gary Oldman is doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
The
his
level
accent.
of acting compared, or I should say, the leagues of acting. Gary Oldman is running circles around Keanu Reeves with his acting, where the makeup is so great, and he's doing the accent really well, and then he's opposite of Keanu Reeves, and you just couldn't get the polar opposites of actors and their abilities with each other in one
Yeah.
scene.
Well, this movie did win the Academy Award for Best Costume Design.
Yeah,
'Cause,
I mean,
uh,
so we talked about that.
and Best Makeup too.
And you mentioned that it's very stylized. Like Dracula's appearance, I'm like, what is that? How does Jonathan Harker see that creature and think that's what a normal person looks like the old
Yeah,
Dracula.
yeah.
He has the butt hair, as people say.
Because in the book, he's just essentially just an old man with a mustache. Like there's nothing unique about him, so it's more shocking when Harkin starts discovering these weird things happening because it's like, oh, it's just some old dude. But this, if I saw that, I'd be like, what the? So it's some, like,
Wait a minute.
it's some like corpse in a kimono and bun with bun hair. Like, but yeah, I guess like for me, like again, like the movie itself, the way I just the style is bizarre for me, and I guess I'm accustomed to the traditional Dracula, and I liked, yeah, I like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and um, I like more, um, kind of in the sense that Dracula is more. I like the notion that Dracula is more charming and like because it plays better I think with Bela Lugosi's where he looks like a normal guy. There's something a little off about him, but there's something interesting about him. But so this one, they went in a different direction, and it's to me it was just like bizarre. Um, but it's very stylish and drastically different. Not only I guess from like the book, but also from the original as well. But
Well, something I know is not in the book, and this is just from doing a rudimentary Google, is the implicit connection of Vlad the Impaler to Dracula. Because I think it was always, or no, no, sorry, the explicit. I think it was implicitly implied in the book that maybe he was based off of Vlad the Impaler. Like it
yeah,
wasn't like 100% confirmed that Bram Stoker was basing off Dracula from Vlad the Impaler. But in this one, it's very explicit. His name is Vlad, and then his wife dies because after he does his little battle, the enemy they shoot a fake suicide note into the castle, and she kills herself. And the priest tells Dracula that her soul is damned for all of eternity because she committed suicide. And
yeah.
then he renounces his faith, and then he like stabs the cross, and
Yeah,
blood spurts out.
and see that's the thing that it's like it just like it catches you off guard. Like if you have no expectation for this movie, or like if you had just seen the original Dracula, and then you cut to this where it's like, the original Dracula, they don't show anything. Like even him biting someone, it's like, yeah, and cut. But this, it's like, he stabs like the cross, and like blood just starts pouring out of it, and all the different statues, and then the room's just covered in blood, and he's drinking the blood. Then it's just like, what is happening? And then too, not even that, but the opening battle.
I thought
It's
that
like
looked
this
great. It's all practical. It's all
because there was
stylish. I love it.
like the puppets like in the back. I
Oh yeah,
think
some of them are
originally,
puppets, or they were supposed to be all puppets, I think. But then they added
yeah,
people.
yeah,
It all looks great, though. I was going to talk about the practical effects in this movie, and everyone always talks about the one shot where it's the train. It has the book in the foreground and the train in the background, and the smoke of the train is casting a shadow on the book. And
mm-hmm.
that's all entirely practical. It's not digital. And they shot that by having a big model of the book with the trainer behind it, and the camera was about 20 feet away. And then they put a light by the smoke of the train so it could cast a shadow on the book. All very intuitive ways of accomplishing those shots. And I think when you have shots like that in the movie where it's all practical, like even there was the projection screens when Jonathan's in the carriage. That's what filmmaking used to be, where it's all this hard work to get a single frame in a movie. Now it's all digital. But I think I'll always appreciate the practical aspect of achieving those shots because it's really cool. And that's all the craftsmanship that used to go into making movies.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that about this film. Like I know I've said multiple times that it's bizarre, and at times, frankly, weird. But I can at least I can at least appreciate the hard work and their ability to pull off practical effects. Because I think the blue flame, that's like the only one that's not
That's
a practical.
optical, yeah.
Yeah, it's an optical one. Um,
Everything else
but
was incredible. Like that one scene where he turns into rats. I was like,
yeah,
what? Whoa, that's so cool.
I did like they gave him a different look. Because he was like a hairy man bat for
Yeah,
most of the movie.
with the long nails when he was talking to Keanu.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the parts that just I just felt like I'm just like, what is happening? Is the like sexual parts of it?
Yeah, like
I
when he's transforming Mina, or is her name Mina?
Lucy as well. It's well the first. Well, I was gonna say before that when Jonathan's at the
Oh, it's like an orgy.
um yeah, it's like a blood orgy, and then the part I laughed at was, when Dracula comes barging in, and you could clearly see in the initial shot, Gary Oldman on that machine that they were pushing him through.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That looked jarring, but they quickly cut out of it. But yeah, that scene, I was like, all right, this is just weird. I'm like, this is a very weird way of showing like, oh, they're biting him. Like you
It's
could
like an
just
operatic version of the book, I guess you could say. It's
yeah,
like over the
and then
top.
yeah, and then they're like yeah, because then they're doing the drinking his blood. Then they're like kissing each other. And then when Dracula barges in, two of them are like merged into like one thing. Did you see that?
I honestly don't remember.
So when Dracula barged in, one of the brides like shot off against the wall, and then he's like backing them off, and the two of them are like merged. Like one is on the top, and the other like they're like two top halves combined, and then
Oh,
like move back. And it was
I don't
like
remember this.
I like looked over. I was like, what the like? But yeah. But another part that did make me laugh, if we're just to go back to Keanu's great acting in this, was when Dracula is going on, he's on this epic, monologue telling of, the proud history of the Draculs and, and all that stuff. And then it just cuts to Keanu Reeves and goes, oh, yes. And then Dracula pulls a sword on him and like comes at him. And he's like, this is no laughing matter. And that's where he's like, I'm sorry, I've offended you. Like, it's just funny. He's like casually doing, oh, yes.
Well, to be fair, like, how would you react to that? I think that's probably the funniest part of the movie is just Keanu's blank expression, and he just has like the best poker face where he just looks confused the
Yeah,
whole time.
he would be challenging to play against in poker. He really
You
would.
can't
But,
read him; it's like a sphinx.
honestly though, I thought the funniest character, not that his character was funny, but how direct and blunt he was Van Helsing. I thought he was
Oh, he was great.
especially when after after Lucy dies, after Dracula kills her, so she can come back as a vampire, and then they have the funeral for her, and then he goes up to like it was either the other doctor or her fiance at the time, and he's like, "Bring me her head," and he's like, "Why?" He goes, we're just." He's like, "We just need to cut off her head and stake her through the heart," like so casually, like it's just some people do.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also too, like after they killed Lucy, and and then like Mina's like trying to find comfort. She's like, "Oh, tell me how she died." He goes, "Well, we cut off her head and staked through her heart." Like in the middle of a restaurant too. Like nonetheless,
Yeah, he's like eating too while he said that.
yeah, yeah. He's like cutting them food. He's like, "Eat up. You need it you need your strength." I did like him because he was just so blunt to the point. Like, this is the mission. No time for anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Hopkins was definitely one of the best parts of the movie too. And I know, so I think I saw some similarities between this and the book, and I guess this will be part of the episode where we talk about similarities and differences. The three suitors in the book for Lucy, or no, in the movie, are from the book. Because I think in the Universal one they merged them into one character. But there are three of them. Like there's the Texan, the Doctor, and the other guy. Those are all in the book, which surprised me. It seemed like the book's a little overcrowded. Oh, and the biggest thing that this movie borrows from the book is the narration with like how the book is told is through diary entries, captain logs, and
Yeah,
whatnot. The movie
yeah,
does
internal
is very
thoughts.
faithful to that storytelling device. I thought that was really cool to include that.
Yeah, and it's cutting too. Like they don't, they're showing passage of time in people's diary entry, journal entries and stuff. Um, I like that in stories where they don't have to be like, oh, 6 months later or however many. Like, I do like that. I do like that style of storytelling where it just is flowing. It's in the narration and stuff like that. And yeah, that and then the only difference really with Renfield, I
Well,
don't
he
know if you
wasn't. He
know.
didn't work with uh, Harker,
Yeah,
right?
that he was not part of a company or anything like that. I don't think in the book they ever really explained how Renfield fell under Dracula's spell. He just kind of was, and he was in a mental institute, eating off bugs and stuff.
What a
Um,
creature!
yeah, and that was another part too. The like insane asylum scenes. It looked like they were in like the sewer,
You know what it felt like? It felt like it was
a
straight
meat
out
house.
of no. It felt like it was straight out of like a Joel Schumacher Batman movie. Like that is what
Yes.
Arkham Asylum is in Batman Forever.
Yeah, and then yeah, because the guards have like the cages on their head,
Yeah.
like crab cages on their and then like the doctor's like slowly becoming insane, or it like was implied he has like a drug addiction. Um,
I don't think that's in the book. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that.
yeah. See, and that's where like the movie I felt like it had good parts, but it just like was very bizarre and like I guess like you said, it's very over the top. Um, it felt like a very over the top play.
Yeah, I can
It,
see that. It's like
yeah,
the sets were over dramatic. I guess you could say they're like
yeah.
big. I was trying to think of another one that I read about another similarity between the book and the movie.
Lucy, I know they did kill Lucy. From the book, it was Van Helsing and the guys. They tracked her down to, but I think the only difference is it's I it is faithful to the book that they killed her like in the where she was going back at night, which was like back by her grave. Um, and then obviously from the original and the book and this one, she was the lady in white because there are reports of kids going missing and stuff, or they got attacked by the lady in white. So that part was true, or that happened in the book. And then I think the way they killed her is from the book too. It was pretty like gruesome. And also too, this was accurate for the book that Dracula could go out in the middle of the day. He was just,
Yes,
sunlight
I
was it was an
Nosferatu
annoyance.
started that trend where the
Yeah,
vampires can't come out during the night or the during the day.
yeah, yeah. Because Dracula could go out in the day. It was the sunlight was annoying to him, and he was weaker, but he could still go out in it. Um, but yeah, the I think that the insane asylum scenes were very over the top and like bizarre, and like they're just like hosing people down and stuff. Um, and then that one scene with when Dracula first he bites Lucy, and he calls out to her, and she like runs through that like garden thing, and then um he's essentially having sex with her in the middle of the garden, and Mina finds them, and then he
Yeah,
like
that was
bites her neck.
strange.
Yeah, I was just like, what is like happening?
He's like a
So
giant wolf man too, because I know in the book too they say he can transform into like a
yeah,
werewolf or a
he
wolf.
yeah he could take the form of a wolf. He could shapeshift. It wasn't like a man bat, but it was more like he just took the form of like the creatures of the night.
Well, that man bat at the end was pretty cool too
Oh yeah,
for
when he
Dracula.
when he, when he like shedded the fur and he just had that like the bat look, like that was really cool. But
Oh, I remember I was going to say this is something very minor that is in the book apparently. Is Jonathan Harker's hair turning white? It's not even explained. It just happens in the movie, at least.
Well, in the movie they said there was a throwaway line.
Oh, I
It
must
was
have missed it
explained.
then.
It was explained after the fact, because she goes to him after he escapes, and yeah, and then his hair is just white. I was like, did he age? Did everyone? Is he the only guy that aged? Um, but then when they came back to London for Mina's funeral, I think or Lucy's funeral, Mina said, Jonathan's still ill. So I think it was just,
Oh, yeah,
yeah. I
Jonathan is
think
sick.
it was. I think it was implied, like, one, what he went, him escaping and everything, and also him just being tortured. Which I don't remember if that was in the book of him just being tortured by the brides. I think he just escaped. Um, but he did jump off, like he did jump down the side of the castle. That was in the book. But yeah, that scene too. Like when like they show Mina and Dracula dancing and having romantic dinners. It cuts to Jonathan just chained up, being bitten and tortured. I was like, my God.
Yeah, that was funny. Poor
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Poor acting, poor man. But and also too, I just think also his acting wasn't good, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but Lucy and Mina,
I
their
thought Winona
acting,
Ryder wasn't really that good. Who played Mina?
I
I didn't think she was
I
that
was gonna
good.
say she wasn't that good. Lucy, again, it seemed like their direction was to just do, like, go over the top Shakespeare, or, like, go over the top theater style. That's how it felt, especially when they're delivering dialogue. But um, there's that one creepy scene where they look up, like the storm's coming. It's Mina and Lucy in the garden, and then, like, he just shows Dracula's, like, eyes, and he's him smiling, and they're just, like, dancing in the rain and stuff. So, like, I think that's the part of the movie that, to me, throws me off a bit, is like all these random scenes like that are thrown in, like, I guess, to show his seduction of them or his power over them. It's just, like, kind of jarring, like the style in which they chose to do it, because, like, I think Mina, it's just like, in the book, if I remember correctly, I think Mina just started acting up, and then they found out that Dracula was visiting her at night because of the bite marks. So I think it was more implied, like they figure out after the fact, um, as opposed to the movie showing it, like, in these weird, seductive, like, weirdly sexual scenes, um, for it.
Yeah,
And
I think that was probably like an emphasis on the book is for the eroticism, or not
yeah,
the book. I mean the movie, because I guess you can make the argument that maybe some of it. Because I saw someone online say that like some of that stuff is implied, but the movie just takes its liberty with it and is like, oh, full blown eroticism here.
yeah, and um, yeah, because then like that, the one scene where after Mina dies, or, like, where Dracula kills her as the wolf, and then she just blows up, like, and blood just takes just covers the whole room, and when Van Helsing's, like, pushing her back into her coffin, like, with the crucifix, and then before she goes down, she just throws up blood on him for no reason.
Wait, Mina did that,
But
or was that Lucy?
Lucy, I keep mixing them up. Yeah, Lucy, when they cornered her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then another scene that was, like, I just was the way Winona Ryder did it. Just, it didn't. It was supposed to be, kind of creepy and stuff, but it just came out, like, funny. Was towards the end when um they're getting close to Dracula. They're trying to intercept Dracula and beat him back to his castle, or like
Yes.
where he had
They like
started.
split up because he's reading Mina's mind. They
Yeah,
have to like outsmart him.
and then her and Van Helsing are having the bonfire, and then the brides show up, and then they're, like, possessing her mind, and she's, like, trying to like act like she's getting possessed and weird, and like it doesn't. The way she does it and her movements in her face, it looked like she like was trying to imitate a chicken, and I was laughing because I was like, this is not looking, this is not she's not executing what they're trying to, like she's going nuts, or like, they're in her head like possessing her, and then she's just like doing this like weird funny chicken dance. It just looked funny to me. But
Yeah, there's something to be said about like besides you know Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins, everyone else really wasn't that good in the movie. The guy who played Renfield was just screaming the entire time.
because even him, I was thinking about that he didn't come out like he was trying to come off as creepy and unhinged and like a lunatic, but it didn't, the way the guy portrayed it like it didn't feel like he was like actually being a lunatic. It felt like he was like doing a bad impersonation of a lunatic,
But
if that
also, it
makes
felt like
sense.
Renfield was really in this movie too. He was more in the 31 version. He was in that movie a lot more than this one.
Yeah. Well, because this one, I don't think he ever gets out of the insane asylum in the movie, or he's, the original made him a much more central figure.
Is that how it
Because
is in the book, or not really? He
no,
just
I think no, in the book he's not. I don't think he's really introduced until later in the kind of midway through the book. And he's like really only he's introduced as in the insane asylum, like because in the 31 they flipped him and Harker, where they had Renfield go, and then you see how he gets under Dracula's spell. This one, it's just like the book where he's just insane. Like he's in the insane asylum.
interesting. Interesting. I mean, I think every time we do these kind of adaptation movies based off a book, I'd always like to see a literal adaptation of the book to movie or even mini TV series. It'd always be interesting to see what Bram Stoker intended or what he literally wanted, for a
Yeah.
movie. It's like the same ideas I had for Frankenstein. Like that'd be cool because the 31 butchered kind of the meaning of the book
Yeah.
in that one. So it'd be interesting to see
Like,
an
well,
actual
yeah.
faithful adaptation.
When Craig and I covered Bride of Frankenstein, that was one thing he noticed. It seemed more like actually following the book, um, as opposed to the first one. But yeah, I would like to see, not like you're saying, a more actual beat by beat of the books, and stay as true as possible to the source material without people doing their own kind of interpretation or of it, or their different like styles. I'd rather see the styles that are more in the book, where it's kind of creepy and ominous, where like Dracula, I feel like his seduction and stuff is more um, subtle and gradual. Where I feel like in this movie it was over the top, uh, and I mean, you still see like the gradual, like they're falling. It's more like a disease, like
Your mic
infection,
is
and it
cutting out
builds and
again.
builds.
Your mic cut out for a
What's
second.
happening?
I don't know.
Um, but yeah, like Frankenstein too. I'd just like to see like a just straight from the book kind of a deal, and see how like they pull that off, as opposed to like for Dracula adding this backstory to him. And I think it plays better for the character, and I think that's something too in this movie that I don't, them kind of giving Dracula a bit of a not really a sympathetic approach, but having somewhat of a justification for how he became the way he is. I think in the book it plays better into, he's just a vampire and he's here and he's doing
Yeah,
this.
because Dracula's kind of the central character because, is he really bad in the movie at least? He's just trying to find his reincarnated lover that committed suicide.
Yeah,
There's I'm not saying he is the good guy or whatnot, but I guess you could say the movie is from his point of view. And one thing that I
Yeah.
don't know if the book does this, but it's very apparent that this movie treats vampirism as it's like connected to Satanism because he condemns God and that's how he becomes essentially a vampire, like this agent of undead, you can say. Is that in the book where it's just
Yeah.
explicit like that, where it's vampirism is essentially related to occultism or Satanism?
Hmm. Not that I remember, because they give such a clear backstory to him. I think it's probably more implied, than it is just downright. Yeah, like he he made a blood pact with the devil, and that's it.
I mean, I think for what the story is trying to tell, I think it's fitting, or not fitting, but I think it makes sense. I guess you can say. I think when it comes to these adaptations, it's important to remember that I don't, or at least for me, I don't want to see something that we already saw because they could have very easily had somebody look like Bela Lugosi and they kind of copied the 31 version. I think I appreciate different changes, and in this one's case, how over the top and stylish it is. I think it's a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it. I could see why you don't really
Yeah.
enjoy it as much.
I mean, I also want to say as well for myself that I guess I like the classics, so it's a little more. And then like we recently watched Dracula, the original one, to this, and it's just like to me, it's like jarring. And but I was just looking at like in the book, it's more of it's more of like he kind of it's like believed like he's to have have dealings with the devil. So like I guess it's more implied. It's not like blatantly. Yeah, he's like he
Explicit.
renounced God. Yeah. Um, because they are Van Helsing like calls them the undead, so it is implied that and they have the crucifix and and the stake and stuff like that. So it is there is that element to it, so it is like implied and stuff. But I don't think it's like where he's blatantly they show it.
Well, do you have any other final thoughts about what you like about the movie, what you don't like?
Hmm. No, not really. I think it was pretty. Like I said, it's a particular style. And but I did like the practical effects for it. Especially, I did like Dracula's different looks for it. I just I'm biased in that sense where I prefer the classic to it. And I don't like the notion of like Dracula is just trying to find love and stuff because it I guess it's difficult to portray that tone where he's murdering a bunch of people and then the next scene he's crying like or he's saying to like hearken like the most blessed man is the man who finds true love. It's like it's a little. I kind of like like Dracula to me is like of the classic monsters. He's not a tragic character. He's just a villain. He's a straight up monster, and he knows what he's doing, and he does it. Um, and like it's more of like he just wants like with Lucy, he and Renfield, and he plays with them because he can. And then Mina, I think he Mina in the book he only went after her really out of spite because they killed Lucy. So he just essentially told Harkin like, yeah, she's gonna be my bride, like just out of spite. So it's more of like he just controls people because he can, as opposed to like the Wolfman or Frankenstein where they're not necessarily truly evil. They're just the Wolfman's cursed, and then Frankenstein is cursed on how he was made and how he looks, and he's kind of more of a misunderstood character, and the Wolfman is just straight up cursed. So I think for me as well, like with Dracula, I like him in the style that he's just more. You don't know his backstory. He's a vampire. How he came to be. He just came to be, and he's just doing what he does because he wants to, as opposed to like he's trying to find love. I think that's just it's a weird tone, or it's a mixing of tones when this guy who is draining blood and made a deal with the devil and stuff like that is justified in trying to find love like every other guy.
Well, I guess you could say in this one he feels like the blood is on his hands.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I think for me, someone who isn't as big as a fan, I guess you could say, of Dracula, I did enjoy the movie. I think it's a nice change of pace from what you think of Dracula. Whenever someone probably thinks of Dracula, they think of Bela Lugosi with The Widow's Peak. But I think this is a fun adaptation. It's different. It's stylish. It's, I think, what movies should be more like, with nice practical effects, nice craftsmanship. It feels like a lot of love was put into this,
Yeah,
and
and
I
that's what
appreciate that.
I can appreciate that too, especially now, like with everything just being in front of a green screen and a small set.
It's like a callback to how movies used to be done with the rear screen
Yeah,
projection from like the 30s and 40s.
yeah, yeah, and I did like the shadow tricks they
Oh
pulled
yeah,
with
those were cool.
Dracula, and because what was that? Just like a puppet, I think they
Yeah,
used.
just a puppet.
Yeah. And then, like, he shifts, he's over there, and then you see the shadow moving or something like
That
that.
was cool too. The shadow was like not attached to
Yeah.
Dracula in the beginning. I think
Or, like,
what would be fun
yeah.
to do for a next episode is to maybe talk about the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The guy who wrote this movie, Daniel, he also wrote the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for 1994. So
Hmm.
maybe that could be the next one, or maybe the Wolfman. I'm not too sure yet.
I guess we could do Mary Shelley, Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Um,
I have to
and
watch
then
it.
we could do the Wolfman, because the Wolfman also comes out 20 years later than these ones, so it's different. But I will, the 2010 Wolfman, I personally
Well,
love.
if we talk about that, we'll get to that.
Sorry, I don't want to start spurging out.
But with all of that being said, this has been the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin,
Daniel.
and we will see you next time.
Yeah.